The Casad family farm in Central Oregon used to grow potatoes, a lot of potatoes.
Probably about 200,000 pounds, maybe 250,000. I think our biggest crop was 20 acres. And then that started to kind of lessen and lessen with the market change, plus the drought really kind of hit us hard.
Chris Casad explained that most of their customers were restaurants, like the Deschutes brewery, which uses potatoes to make French fries.
At any given moment when I was growing the scale of potatoes, if it was restaurant hours, someone was eating my food, for 6 months of the year.
When the COVID-19 pandemic forced restaurants to close, the Casad farm took a hit. They were able to pivot to grocery sales, but the drought made things harder. And it was Oregon's water policy that really forced them to pivot away from potatoes at their Jefferson County farm.
We're the second largest irrigation district in the state, but in the Deschutes Basin, we're the junior water rights holder. So when drought hits our area, we're the first ones to lose our water.
As we've talked about before on the Evergreen, Oregon water rights rely on a system called prior appropriation, or first in time, first in right. Basically, in a drought, the people who hold the oldest or senior water rights get top priority, and junior water rights holders, like the Casad farm, have to make do with less. Chris and his wife, Kate Havstad Casad, made a lot of changes to stay afloat in 2020. And in 2021, they got even less water. Everyone was hurting. They both vividly remember what happened with their neighbor, who'd been farming a lot longer than they had.
I got a call from his wife, and he couldn't get out of bed. So we had to go harvest his crops, some hay fields for him, and help just get them in.
Yeah, I remember that for sure, because he is a pretty stoic man, and it was a pretty vulnerable thing for his wife to reach out and ask for help. I'm glad she did. I remember thinking, how are you going to handle helping them when, it feels like we're already behind here? I think that's just when the statistics that you hear about regarding depression in agriculture and suicide rates among farmers, it was no longer like a statistic on a page. It was like somebody I know is really, really struggling.
Suicide rates among farmers are about 3 times higher than the general population, and the suicide rate in Jefferson County doubled during the drought.
I mean, he's come out of it since, but, he was just in a serious depression where he couldn't get out of bed. And, it's just hard remembering getting that phone call from his wife because she didn't know what to do.
From the Gert Boyle studio, I'm Jen Chavez, and this is The Evergreen, a podcast from OPB about the place you call home. The Deschutes River is a lifeline for Central Oregon. About 90% of the river's water is diverted to irrigation canals during the growing season. OPB's Central Oregon Bureau Chief, Emily Curitin Cook, wanted to know where exactly all that water went and what it was used to grow.
I live in Bend. I live near this river. I can actually see it from where I'm sitting right now. And I can't help but be very aware of the water here. And so all of this is on my mind when I'm taking a walk, basically. I'm walking along this really lovely trail that hugs the river all the way through Bend. And if you walk on that trail in the summer, you'll be going along and the river is chugging right along next to you. You can start on the south end of town, and then suddenly a big chunk of the Deschutes disappears into a pipe. And then you keep going on the trail, keep going and going. A couple miles, you're on the north end of town, and there's this big dam. And that's where most of the river disappears into canals. And below that dam, the river looks like a creek. So for years, I've wondered, okay, where does all that water go? Who does it benefit? What do they use it to grow?
One irrigation district in particular, the Central Oregon Irrigation District, diverts half of the river between April and October in an average year. Emily teamed up with journalists at ProPublica to zoom in on the Central Oregon Irrigation District, or COID. They did some deep data analysis to find some answers. A few years ago, Oregon lawmakers invested in a study. They worked with consultants at the nonprofit Desert Research Institute to use satellite imagery, federal crop data, weather data, and Oregon irrigation records to come up with a report that estimates how much irrigation water each field in Oregon used from 1985 all the way through 2022.
We layered the state data set with irrigation district and county property records so that we could get a sense of who effectively owns a controlling share of the river and what they were growing. And then we analyzed federal agricultural data to see how much economic activity came from the farms being watered by COID. And our reporting focused on 2022, partly because it's the latest year for which state data is currently available, and also because it marked the culmination of a really bad drought.
This is not a story about numbers. This is a story about people, and specifically people who are growing some of the food you eat if you live in Oregon. People like Chris Cassad and Kate Havstad-Cassad. They're first-generation farmers.
He grew up in a Bend neighborhood, actually. He's not from a farming place. He grew up in Bend playing indoor soccer and working for an asphalt company. But after he took a sustainable farming course after high school, that's when he knew really clearly what he wanted to do with his life.
Yeah, and just, growing vegetables and food, that was kind of something that I really jumped into before I started doing any, animal husbandry. But it was all kind of tied in with, growing my own food was the biggest part of it. And then, if you get good at it, then you can grow other people's food and charge them money for it, which was cool.
I liked that Chris knew exactly who he was, which was actually kind of startling at first. I remember on our first date, he pretty much told me that he wanted to have kids, and if I didn't want to have kids, we just shouldn't even bother. I was like, oh my God, what guy in his 20s says that? So I knew that I liked that he knew who he was, and clearly he likes feeding other people, and he likes working outside and working with animals. He's an extremely observant and very, very patient man, and he liked to have a good time while he was doing meaningful hard work. We both work with our hands, and I know for both of us that work is not just work. We aren't people who just choose a career path for income. We are both really purpose-driven in what we're doing. That becomes our profession.
Fast forward a few years, and they have 2 little kids. They own their own farm in Central Oregon's Jefferson County. Kate has her own business making custom hats, but she's also really involved in the farming operation. They started out growing potatoes and other vegetables on land they were leasing in the Central Oregon Irrigation District. But when they wanted to buy property of their own, they moved to the North Unit Irrigation District in nearby Jefferson County.
The first year we were here, which was 2017, we could grow anything that we wanted to grow, and we did. Because 2.5 acre feet, when you're given that full allotment, is actually just enough. It was enough for us to do everything we wanted to do.
Kate is talking about their water allotment. When they moved from COID to the North Unit Irrigation District, they became junior water rights holders. That means their farm is lower priority when water is scarce. So that plentiful water allotment didn't last.
2020, was when it really started, in my eyes, being dire. So I just feel like in the first couple of years, I just wasn't aware of what it would mean to be junior water rights holders. And I didn't really start to understand how dire it was going to be until 2019 and 2020.
They basically had to change the way they were farming in order to stay in business.
The year that we had 20% of our normal allotment, it was either like we grow potatoes and the rest of the farm dries up, or we minimize potatoes and keep our hay fields going and pastures and started doing a bunch of grain as well.
In the spring of 2022, Chris found out from an irrigation district Zoom meeting that they were going to get 20% of their normal water allotment. He called Kate, who was traveling for her hat-making business. She made a reaction video, which she never posted to their Instagram page, but she shared it with us. And I just want to play you a short clip from it because it really captures what that moment meant for them.
This year, likely, for every 1 acre of food we want to grow, we will have to dry up 4 acres. How does that work? We don't know. And it makes us think extremely sad thoughts like maybe we don't get to be vegetable farmers, which, it's insane to work so hard just to try to have the opportunity to work so hard.
Kate and Chris don't grow a lot of vegetables anymore. Instead, they grow hay, which doesn't need nearly as much water, and they use that hay to feed cows and pigs that they raise for meat. And Chris has had to take on jobs outside the farm. He worked part-time at a feedlot this past winter. Now he's a school bus driver. They made all of these changes because of the drought, but also because of Oregon water law, the laws that give priority to the Central Oregon Irrigation District.
And those are the water rights that we really zoomed in on in this investigation. In wet years and dry years, COID, as it's known, generally diverts about half of the volume of the river during the hottest months of the year. And our analysis found that only 1 out of every 4 gallons the district took during the last drought directly benefited plants. And that 1 gallon that went to plants, well, almost none of it grew anything other than grass and pasture.
OPB and ProPublica's analysis across wet and dry years showed a similar finding, and the results mirrored COID's own estimates to the state. State water managers did not dispute the numbers, but the irrigation district said it didn't trust the satellite-based data, which Oregon lawmakers backed to study water availability. Coming up after a break, who is using all that water? Thanks for listening to The Evergreen, our podcast from OPB about the place you call home. If you dig what you hear, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll bring you something new and interesting to listen to every Monday. OPB has made a big effort to expand our local journalism in the last few years. We have 2 journalists in Bend, including Emily, 2 journalists in Eastern Oregon, and 2 journalists in Southwest Washington. If we're able to raise more money from members, where would you like to see us expand our regional coverage? Let us know. Just send us an email at theevergreen@opb.org. And now, back to the Deschutes River Basin.
Some of these weeds out of here, but there's a metal plate in here. The depth of the water from that metal plate up to the top of the water can tell you how many gallons are flowing onto our property.
Brandon Reese showed Emily around the 40 acres he owns in the Central Oregon Irrigation District.
And at his house, it is a pretty darn bucolic scene in the summertime. A willow tree lazed over this pond, lined with reeds. There's like singing birds and frogs are thrumming. And he's got this very cute dog, Bowie, who's just gleefully swimming around and chasing a goose. And, you know, thankfully the goose always gets away. It's idyllic.
I used to drive by this piece of property on the way out to Prineville, and I decided this is where I had to live. And a big part of that was the canal that runs through the property, having water out here. I'm not sure Well, I'm positive it wouldn't be as attractive to me if it didn't have water on it.
Brandon said that over the past 20 years, he's tried to figure out how to make money off of his land.
Whether it's cattle, hay, sugar beets, potatoes, gardening, nursery crops. We did hemp one year. We've tried a little bit of everything.
But nothing quite penciled out. So he just grows grass and enjoys it. And he runs a landscaping business in a nursery in the closest city, which is Bend.
I work other jobs to pay to live out here. Look around. It's the best life ever.
Even though he's not growing crops or feeding livestock, Brandon Reese still gets at least twice as much water per acre than the Casad farm because of that whole seniority thing, and because of the way the water rights laws are written.
It's a uniquely Western part of the Wild West.
Karen Russell is a professor of water law at Lewis and Clark Law School.
If you're the first person there and you divert the water from the stream and you put it to beneficial use without waste, then you have a right to use that water.
She explained a bedrock concept in state water law. It's a concept that relies on two key terms: beneficial use and without waste. But the thing is, those terms are very broadly defined, and it's really something that developed at the state level. Now, legal experts, environmental advocates, farmers, and even some of COID's customers say the irrigation district has become a striking example of what happens when water law and policies fail to adapt to new realities.
I think both the legislature and the Water Resources Department has recognized that really tightening our understanding of beneficial use without waste would help stretch our water supplies, especially giving increasing demands over water in a drying climate.
Craig Harrell is the managing director of the Central Oregon Irrigation District. He agrees that changes need to happen.
There is no dispute that we all want a better, more equal, more balanced water delivery system that benefits our river, our partners, districts, cities. That's a given. How we get there is what we argue about.
So far, lawmakers haven't found the political will to overhaul this outdated system. And it's not like Brandon Reese and his fellow irrigators in COID can easily just share the water with their downstream neighbors, like Chris Casad.
Oregon law is clear. If people with water rights don't irrigate exactly where they're supposed to at least once every 5 years, the state can cancel the unused water rights.
Emily explained that COID works hard to make sure that doesn't happen.
So the Central Oregon Irrigation District deploys aerial surveillance every summer, monitoring more than 350 square miles for brown patches of desert where the district says there should be green. And in the last 5 years, we learned the district sent more than 700 letters to its landowners warning them to take immediate action or face cancellation by the state, possible cancellation by the state of their water rights, and the permanent loss of those water rights to, quote, both you and the district.
Craig Harrell says COID is taking a long view when it comes to water use.
We're a business. We're here to stay in business, and we're here to do business better and more sustainable. We are protecting the water for the next 100 years for COID because we believe in climate change and we believe that our water will be used differently. It could be in greenhouses, it could be growing some different variety, but we believe that our water is going to be very beneficial to our area and our community in the future.
Many water users are more concerned about the near term. Water rights are directly tied to property values. And so the threat of losing those rights leads people to use water in some questionable ways.
Well, in terms of what we've seen happen when people are afraid of this use it or lose it enforcement, we saw some really striking examples of people who said they watered a compost pile, or others who just turn on the sprinklers to grow anything green, and then records of the district signing off on that as beneficial use. And Jesse Talbot, the water rights manager at the Central Oregon Irrigation District, insisted that they don't want people irrigating rock or compost piles. She says they're just trying to take a practical approach while still aligning with water law, and it's a really fine line. And in terms of the big picture, OPB and ProPublica examined not just how much water COID was sending to landowners and how much of that water benefited plants, but also what was being cultivated there as these downstream farmers were forced to stop planting economically valuable crops.
They found that 9 out of every 10 gallons consumed by plants was growing grass for pastures grazed by livestock or landscaping, oftentimes on hobby farms and luxury properties.
I visited one 80-acre property in COID that was not that long ago dry scrubland. And I was interested in this parcel because the former owner, a guy named Byron Garth, actually bought water rights from the irrigation district about a decade ago because he wanted to green up 18 acres of this land. And with those water rights, Garth transformed a rocky hillside. He built a 6,300 square foot mansion with radiant heated floors, 3 guest houses, an infinity swimming pool. And it was all surrounded by this fairy tale-like carpet of soft green grass. A realtor named Jen Bowen gave me a tour of this place when it was for sale last year. And she said the grass was, quote, for aesthetic value. And then the estate sold for $4.8 million.
One of the most striking examples Emily turned up was this collection of estates called Ranch at the Canyons. It's one of the district's top consumers of water.
At the ranch, dozens of multi-million-dollar Tuscan-style mansions encircle this equestrian center. There's a luxury wedding venue, there's a winery. And while state data show the ranch does grow hay and pasture, its website promises the homeowners there the peaceful rhythm of agricultural life without the work. The Ranch at the Canyons manager did not respond to my questions. I was able to reach Byron Garth. He's a cinematographer, and he's the one who bought water rights to green up those 18 acres around a mansion. And I asked him how much buying those water rights from COID mattered for transforming the property that was dry scrubland into something he could sell for millions. And he said they were everything. But he also said, in retrospect, the water was just a ton of work that he didn't want to do. And in hindsight, he would have rather not gotten it. He told me he used the water at first to grow a hay field for some goats and alpacas, but in the end, it was cheaper just to mow it.
Emily's reporting focused on 2022, which marked the culmination of one of the worst droughts in Oregon history, according to state climatologist Larry O'Neill.
And I think the drought between 2020 and 2022 was a really good example of what could happen in the future, or what will happen in the future, or what's projected to happen in the future. Is that we saw widespread water shortages, a lot of irrigation shut off. There comes more conflicting uses for the water and more people who have different ideas about how it should be managed.
In other words, these problems aren't going away. This year, Oregon's snowpack is one of the lowest it's ever been, at least since people started keeping records. And that mountain snow is what feeds the springs that power the rivers, including the Deschutes River. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek has already declared a drought emergency this year in Deschutes County, as well as other counties in Central and Eastern Oregon. For now, that means the Casad farm will keep growing hay instead of potatoes. Even though they're no longer his cash crop, Chris hasn't totally given up on potatoes.
We usually do, maybe like a 1/4 acre of potatoes, and still have like field trips out from local schools to where the kids can come out and dig them up and all the things. Still trying to be educational, just to show kids what a working farm is, where their food comes from. And potatoes are actually a very good conduit to that because, they just dig at dirt and they find food hidden underneath there. So kind of brightens their eyes and understanding that the soil is what, keeps us all going in all reality, but we need water to do it.
For now, he says they'll keep growing hay and raising animals.
Luckily, I still enjoy what I do. Like, I like the cattle and the hogs, and I like growing the hay. Like, I really like just farming in general, but it's changed a lot. Everyone's had to go through it and figure it out.
The future is uncertain, but Chris and his wife Kate are in it for the long haul.
Chris and I are not swayed by challenge. And I think especially in your 20s, like you feel somewhat invincible. So like, why not us? Whatever challenge would come, like we would figure it out. If there was a blockade, we would find the pivot. And I still feel that way. I'm a little bit more jaded, not in a terrible sense. The early idealism and the early innocence is gone, and we're now fully in the thick of the reality of the situation and truly how challenging this is, but I still have no desire to like throw my hands up and say it's too hard.
Oregon's water rights system is over 100 years old, and state lawmakers at the forefront of water policy told OPB that it's just not set up to address the current situation. So at some point in the near future, water users and policymakers are going to have to grapple with the questions of what beneficial use and waste actually mean in a modern context. And when they do, we'll be here to follow along. I asked Emily what gives her hope when she looks at the river out her window.
In addition to being a place where these disparities in how water is shared are really pronounced, the Deschutes Basin has also long been a testing ground for solutions and for innovations and for negotiations about how we can try new things. And so most of those I found really kind of work in the margins of water law and don't directly tackle some of the issues raised in this reporting about what is benefit and what is waste in the times that we live in. But I feel hopeful that because the needle has moved here politically before, that it will again.
Emily Curitin-Cook is OPB's Central Oregon Bureau Chief. You can read her full coverage of water issues in the Deschutes Basin and dig into her data-driven collaboration with ProPublica at opb.org. And while you're there, you can check out our previous episode about how water rights work in Oregon. We'll link to it all in our show notes. Thanks for listening to The Evergreen, podcast from OPB. Julie Sabatier produced this episode, and our technical director is Stephen Cray. He also mixed and mastered the episode. The OPB podcast team also includes Mia Estrada and Sage Van Wing. Emily Curitin-Cook did the interviews you heard. The music in this episode is from Audio Network. And hey, if you have a question for us, please reach out. You can just send us an email at theevergreen@opb.org. I'm Jen Chavez. Catch you later.